Hello and welcome to another edition of Here's the Pitch, and is sponsored by Masses Restaurants in St. Louis, 5 locations, stlmasses.com. You can go to that website, take a look at those menus, directions. Again, if you're driving through St. Louis, you enjoy the real-world interviews, anything else you've seen on my channel, go there, take a look. And my guest today is someone who was on the real world, lived in Bloomington, Illinois, which is only 2 hours away from St. Louis. Mike Lambert, Real World Season 5. Unbelievable. Hello, Mike.
2 hours, depending on how fast you drive.
I drive fast. It says it's 155 miles, about 2.5 from where I live now. But if from downtown proper, I just drove to Milwaukee twice in the last 4 weeks. We did a vacation, then I did some work, and the first time was with my family, so it was a little longer. But I made Milwaukee in 5 hours. I was pretty excited.
So you vacationed in Milwaukee?
Vacationed in Lake Geneva.
Okay, that's better. That sounds okay.
Worked in Milwaukee. Was not planning to go to.
Okay, got it. All right.
So there he is, folks. It's unbelievable. And now he's out doing podcasts all over the place, I see. No, I'm kidding. We've been trying to do this forever. And Norm has been on the show with Judd. I'm trying to get kind of the people you hadn't seen before. And then, of course, now Paramount does the homecoming, so we can see you all the time. But we haven't seen you in a while, so thank you for joining me. Where are you? What are you doing? What's going on?
I am currently in Atlantic Beach, Florida, which is northeast. It's outside of Jacksonville. I still have, after all these years, I'm still doing private investigation. I started my company 20 years ago this year when I was out in California. I'm co-owner of a men's clothing store / bar called T-Dubs here in Atlantic Beach. We've been open about 3 years, and then co-owner of an aesthetic center where we basically remove fat, do fat transfer, skin tightening, and all that. And that's called Pure Sculpting. We're here in Jacksonville area and Tampa area.
Can we do that remote for me? I have some trouble spots.
You know what? If you run down here, you'll lose a lot of it.
We were just talking about how hot it is. No one wants to hear us complain about weather.
You go outside and probably lose 5 pounds instantly.
So a lot of businesses, so is the PI is the main thing still, or do you just sort of dabble in freelance?
I'm just dabbling in that, and then the clothing store and stuff is pretty much the one that's keeping me busiest these days. Yeah.
What kind of clothing? Everyone's got a store.
Well, we call it so the Instagram is T-Dubs AB, TDUBS AB. We call it coastal wear. Yes, golf, surf, casual, some sort of like dressy a little bit. And then we have a speakeasy in back. We got voted best new bar at the beach a couple years ago. So yeah, it's been a whirlwind, but it's been really fun. The one thing that sucks is we opened right before COVID. So we got through that. Now we're starting to learn, what normal is now, at least. So, but it's been fun.
So you were on the Miami show. I don't know if you had any background in Florida, but now you live in Florida now. Did Miami just bring you to Florida and you're like, I'm staying, or?
No, I was actually born and raised just a few blocks from where I am right now. Okay. So when I actually got on the real world, I just did the 5-hour trek down to Miami. So obviously Miami is not Northeast Florida, as you probably know. It's Florida, but up here, we call it Southern Georgia. Down there, it's everything but still Florida nonetheless.
See, that's my problem. Is I wanted to move to Florida, and my wife's like, "Let's do Jacksonville. It's not all that." And I said, "But in the winter, I don't think Jacksonville is. It's still a little cool in the January, February."
We get more of the seasons up here, that's for sure. Miami, I think, stays pretty warm. Although when I was living down there, we did get some cooler temps. But up here, it hasn't snowed here in I think 33 years. That being said, we get down in the 30s, 40s, in the wintertime. So it's nice. It's a nice change.
Now, do people remember you from the show? How often do people say, "Hey," or do people want to reach out? Just tell me a little bit about that.
As time progresses, the number of people that recognize me digresses. You know what I mean? It's out of sight, out of mind type of thing. Not only that, man, when we were getting recognized was mainly right after the show. Because keep in mind, it was, real world and reality TV, for that matter, was just fresh. So that's what people concentrated on and everybody watched. And now, everywhere you turn, there's some sort of reality show on. So not only that, everybody that noticed me was pretty much my age. And now that I'm literally in my 50s, I don't expect, 23-year-olds to come up to me that often and say, "Hey, were you, my mom knows you," is what I expect to hear.
Yeah, it's funny. We got set up through Norm, and Norm came on. He was like the first one. I was trying to do this before I even knew of the homecoming thing. because this was part of like I was looking at sort of a what else can we do here? I didn't know that there was another guy kind of doing the same thing, and he does it really well. Mike Lewis, by the way, you were just on his podcast. Because I listened to, yeah, and so my mind is always I was always doing a sports podcast, and then I did some former Howard Stern member. I'm like, what can I do next? I'm like, people don't hear from these real world people, and then here they come out of the woodwork with 3 different homecomings. Do you watch any of these? Have you seen any of them? Are you watching?
No. It's funny. I was talking to Mike last week. I have not seen since my season of Real World '96. I have never seen one smidgen of any reality TV. Even the challenges, everything I did, the reunions, all that stuff. Never seen them. I refuse to watch them.
I was going to say, you seem like you'd be perfect for this run of shows that they've done. Did you ever? Do you look back now and think, if I would have stuck with that, I could have been Johnny Bananas, even though you probably don't know who that is, or maybe you do. But
I literally heard of Johnny Bananas for the first time. Dan told me about him last week, and again, no idea he was on. If I know he's on the Real World, I don't know which one. But yeah, I've heard of him for the first time. But no, I did 2 of the challenges, which I was trying to get on Road Rules to begin with. That's how I got the Real World. So I love the idea of going on the challenges because that's more up my alley, doing the fun stuff instead of sitting around a house all day. But after the second one, the drama, even then I was like 30, 31, and the drama just got to me. And I just had I think, they called me maybe 2 years after my last one in 2002 to do another challenge. I'm like, just take my name off the list. I don't need this. I was staying busy with the PI stuff anyway. But I didn't need just the fights, the drama. And I know it was nice TV, if you will, but I didn't need to be a part of that.
But what do you think of these people now that was their thing? They got on the Real World and then they got on a challenge and they got it. Now that's their job. Is that?
Yeah, so honestly,
crazy to you to think about?
Dan from my season and I talk quite a bit. And so he tries to explain this stuff to me. And he's like, yeah, all these people doing the challenges. And this one guy, he's won like 3 of them and all this. And I'm like, freaking great. He's probably doing well. He's probably making 50, 60 grand. And he's like, no. They're making shitloads of money. I'm like, But I also have to look at it from the standpoint, I'm 50. And these guys, Dan had me look them up and they're ripped. They're like 25 and ripped, and I'm, 50 years old now, gray hair, and I'm fighting, wearing readers. So, look, the idea is fun. I'd probably do it. In fact, they asked me about it last year. Yeah, last September. Cynthia ended up going instead of me. But I said I'd be up for it. Just for the fuck of it, why not?
So this is breaking news. We may see Mike from season 5 of Real World. That's what's crazy, because they now are, I'm in my mid-40s. I'm not as old as you. But you reminded me of me when I watched. If I went on the Real World, that's who I would have. We would have been kindred spirits. That's how your character would have been me. This is so ridiculous, and let's party and have a good time. But yeah, now they're bringing all the old people back, so you can go like with the walker and the cane and battle Norm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, pull out my bag, brushing my teeth. That'd make great TV, wouldn't it?
This is what they're trying to do now. But it's amazing how popular it stayed and I think the retro thing is interesting too, because I have watched these homecoming things, and they probably don't need to be as many episodes as they are. I think 2 or 3 would be enough. But the fact that they put them...
Yeah, well, they're 8, right?
Yeah, they put them back in
6 or 8?
Yeah, and they put them back in the house, and then it gets there's a little bit of just hey, let's bring in today's problems that these people... And I don't know if I need all that.
Well, I'm sure they still have to make some sort of, good TV. Obviously, they can't just have people sitting around. So I don't know how they're doing it, how they're going about getting them to interact. But I would imagine they're bringing up some sort of drama from the past, which, looking back, now again, as old as I am, I'm not that old, but looking back, some of that shit we did, it was just so juvenile, back then it probably seemed fun and exciting. And now it's just like, God, just such petty shit.
Would you and your guys from your season, do you think you guys would do that? All go back and live in a house for like a week? And
yeah, so we honestly, we all agreed to it. I think that was one of the stipulations of doing these reunions, was that every cast member from each season had to agree. And so we thought that our holdouts would be probably Sarah and Melissa, and nobody could get a hold of them. Well, here you have a PI. So I found them. I actually called Sarah myself, and she's like, yeah, sounds pretty fun to me. And then got Melissa's info, and I think Flora called her, and she just had a baby, Melissa, that is, I think this past year at the age of 48, maybe 49. But I think she said she'd be into it. So Joe was into it, Cynthia's into it, Dan was into it, I'm into it. So I think we have all affirmatives. It's just now a matter of getting it greenlit.
Well, this sounds exciting. I mean, this was a fun season. It came off the London season, which was sort of dark. Did you watch any of these beforehand? Did you watch London?
I did. I watched all of the ones before mine. I did. I watched all the ones before mine. Yeah, and I got into it just like anybody did back then. I was, 22, 23 at the time. But then Road Rules came out, with Mark on there and Kit and Mark, another Florida boy who he and I ended up becoming pretty good friends. But I just wanted to do Road Rules. And it kind of segued into me getting in the final. They flew me up to New York a couple times, and I'm like, okay, I got this. And then they're like, no, sorry. It's like, well, why in the hell did you fly me up? And they sent me out on a date with a camera. I'm like, okay, this is odd. And the girl who I was with ended up telling me quietly, because we were mic'd up. She's like, they want you for the real world. I was like, no, I don't want that. I don't want that. But then they kind of told me what the house was going to be. The pool, the jet skis, the jacuzzi, on the beach and in the heart of modeling season. And I was like, all right, sold. You got me.
So did you do like what everyone did back then? Just send to MTV, like at the end of the show, they're like, hey, it's MTV, we're casting for this. Is that what you did?
I did. I did exactly that. I set up, I think it was about a 12-pound VHS recorder, set it up there, just hit record. And at the time I was managing a restaurant. And so I, just gave him my spiel. Hi, I'm Mike. I live in wherever, Ponte Vedra Beach, Florida at the time. Manage a restaurant. I don't even know what I said. I'm sure it's in the vault somewhere. But because they were starting a business, remember that season they were starting a business? I think I was the last piece of the puzzle. Everybody had been cast but myself. And so they needed to fill the void of that, that all-American guy. They had the black, they had the gay, blah, blah, blah. And they had to fill the all-American guy. And so I happened to be in business mode. So I think I just happened to fit that slot. And that's how I got cast.
I mean, isn't it amazing that as you look back, and that was the 5th year of The Real World, and still reality TV wasn't happening, but how smart Murray, Jonathan Murray, and Mary Alice Bunemer to have this idea of not only, I mean, obviously season 1 was just an idea, but by season 2, it's like, all right, what we need is a black guy, a gay guy. We needed this, we needed that, and they had this idea of not only just putting people, but types, because now you watch. I mean, you don't, but I still watch Survivor. Right. I'm almost over all of them, right. But it's still the same prototype. You have to, and now you're getting into let's put a transgender, or let's get more black people because we don't want just one, and it's not fair. Isn't that amazing when you think back about what they were doing, and just tell me a little bit about them.
They came up. I mean, it's like bread. They came up with the perfect recipe. Like it just worked. Everything they did worked. Everybody they cast, I think, worked. And yes, as time has progressed, now you have to, get, more racial than transgender. Are they doing transgender now? I don't even know.
I don't know. I haven't seen that.
Like I haven't seen, but but you got to keep in mind that they started with the gay, who's like my big brother Norm. But Norm was like the first, I think, openly gay man on TV. On something like that, and they knew that stuck, so they had to stick with that. They had to stick with a black person that, and then a bitch, as you will. But they stuck with it, and you know what? I have nothing but mad respect for everybody that's done it. They all went in knowing that they were probably cast as a certain type, but they were all themselves, everybody, and I think that's great. And as at least up to the point where I stopped watching, everybody seemed pretty true to themselves because I've met almost all of them, either obviously my season, but before as well, and some after. But everybody just seemed pretty genuine.
You said you talked to Dan a lot off the season. Just how did you guys continue that relationship? What made it him be the person that you kind of stayed in touch with the most?
Well, actually, I stay in touch with from my season, probably Dan the most. And honestly, it's social media. What was it? I don't even know how long Facebook's been around, 10, 15 years. But before that, we probably never would have had a chance to even connect. And now with the social media, like, hey, friend request, message, done. But Dan, I don't know, I just love Dan. Dan's just such a character. And then about 2 months ago, maybe a month and a half ago, I saw Joe for the first time. He came to visit. He was coming to a wedding down in St. Augustine, which is about an hour south. And first time I had seen him since we used to do these college speaking tours. And we caught up for like 2 hours, just laughed our asses off, talked about the possibility of the reunion. He's like, I'm in, let's do it. Cynthia and I, same thing, just through messaging, talk a little bit. And then I called Sarah 2 months ago when I got her number. And we talked for about 2 hours, just catching up, and she's doing well out in California. So, yeah, it's nice to be able to, connect the way we do, as much as social media is kind of a pain in the ass, if you ask me. It really kind of connects people and, keeps people in touch. When I was growing up, you never, you left high school, you're probably never going to see your friends again. You're in the same boat, that same age. Our parents always said, enjoy your friendships now.
Yeah.
Because they're going to be gone, and now you got them.
Yeah, I remember maybe around 2010, all my high school buddies and girls and everybody started, and and it was like, wow, we're back. We're back in high school, which I hated high school, but it was fine. I liked seeing a lot of people I hadn't seen. I went to the 10-year reunion, and then it was over. Like, we stopped talking. It was like, oh, this was fun. Okay. I remember why I didn't want to talk to you anymore, but that's pretty cool. You guys still keep in touch. I get the sense Joe did not enjoy his time, but he wrote a book and all of it. But tell me a little bit about him, because he was kind of I know he was brought in because the business thing, and they're like, let's bring a business guy in to help get this business thing started.
Yeah. Well, Joe is incredibly business savvy. I think he's kind of retired now. He's been doing this charity work for years now, philanthropy, if you will. But I also think it had a lot to do at the time with his, Amazon girlfriend, Nikki. I think they like that dynamic. You have a guy who's 5'7" and then a girl who's 6'3". It just seemed like good TV at the time. But Joe, incredibly smart, incredibly sweet, and incredibly genuine too. But he enjoyed his time. Keep in mind, I was the only guy. There was 3 guys, and I was the only one that drank and partied. Joe and Dan didn't drink. I think Dan maybe drank a little. So I was kind of, in a corner on my own. When we'd go out, I'd go do my thing. But Joe and I still to this day just remain, great friends.
And the people I've talked to mentioned by the season they got on, let's say Judd from season 3 or whoever else, Mike from season 4 I've had on. You learned how to kind of get away from the camera. Was that kind of what you kind of figured that out? Is like, hey, listen, if I go out and don't tell them where I'm going, they can't follow me. I can't imagine that dynamic of waking up and cameras being, hey, I'm going to have breakfast and here I'm in my boxers and there's Tim with the camera.
When you start it, you start the show, you are told basically you have to tell them wherever you go. Keep in mind that we didn't have cell phones, we had pagers. So we had a thing called the bat phone. You had to, call in, say, here's where I'm going. So then get the camera crew and stuff ready. And we were told in the beginning, hey, don't wander off. Don't do any of that. We're like, okay. As time progresses, you find ways to get away from it. Obviously after a while, you got cameras around you all the time. You want to get the fuck away. Like, it gets old sometimes. Not only that, nobody can tell you at first when they first have cameras on you that it's natural. There's nothing natural about that. In due time, it becomes a little, you become a little more used to it. But there were times when you just had to get away and you found ways to do it. And don't get me wrong. I mean, looking back, I was 24 years old. I got reprimanded. Now I laugh at it. Back then I was like, my bad, I'm sorry. But, looking back, it's like, shit, I'll do it again.
You had so much fun. Now, you had one of the most amazing scenes of any real world ever before it all became threesomes and bathtubs. But this is the biggest scene of reality television. No one had ever seen anything like this, and people are...
I thought you were going to talk about when Joe and I had to dip the dog's penis in sugar.
I don't remember that. No, I don't know if you... I mean, it's been 20 years, but this becomes your big scene, and that everyone's outside listening in. Yeah. Was that odd for you hey, Mom, don't watch this one tonight. This is going to be weird. Give us what happened. Tell everybody what happened.
No, you know what? I'm going to leave a little mystery in that one. And also, well, I'll tell you right now, my family knows me. Like, I didn't really hide anything. And I kind of laughed. A few family members were like, eye rolling, but at the same time, they're like, yeah, that's expected. But as far as what happened, I kind of want to leave some of that a mystery. Maybe we'll save it if there is a reunion. But out of respect to like Melissa and stuff, I think, I'm just going to, what you saw is pretty much what happened, to be honest with you. Of course, there's behind the scenes that you can only hear. And to be honest, I had about 14 doers and sodas that night. So mind is a little foggy. Probably other parts foggy too, but definitely a scene that I will be known for probably until I'm 6 feet under.
It's funny, and it's funny that you just said that because I think about all the drinking. I did a lot of binge drinking up until about 39 years old. I was enjoying and I was having fun, and there was no cameras and there was no documentation. There was no Instagram. There was no Facebook. I'm very thankful for that, but I'm also curious what that would have looked like. I'm happy that there's only a few little remnants of times where there was parties. I can't imagine having to have the camera there for a situation like that and going and, oh yeah, that was, well, okay, I guess I was, I could see how that would be like, whatever I was drinking.
You and I are in the same boat. It's just for 6 months or whatever, I had a camera on me. That's it. Once those cameras are gone, I continued to be the same person, do the same stuff. But to document it was with, disposable cameras and all that, because obviously no cell phones or anything then. But it was a unique experience, to say the least.
And then Melissa, you mentioned you just got in touch with, what is she up to? And how does one, I know you don't want to dig into how you do your job, but like how does one kind of dig in if you can't find them on social media? Give me the...
Yeah, so I never talked to Melissa. Flora did, I believe Flora did. And I just found out she was living in LA. And just as a PI, it's basically skip tracing. It's just finding people. That's what I do. Do work for like banks and finance companies, stuff like that. But yeah, I found her and I was like, okay, anybody want to call her? And she gave the number to Dan and he gave it to Flora. And I guess Flora talked to her for a while and found out she had a baby. And told her what they were kind of interested in for a reunion. And word on the street is she said yes. So, which was completely unexpected, to be honest with you. In fact, I thought Sarah would be like, no, I'm good. But Sarah was in on it as well. She's like, absolutely.
So they're just out raising families, right? They're not, there's no Hollywood. There's nothing exciting, exciting.
I don't know what Melissa does. I know she's living in California, but I don't know what she's doing or anything like that. I would think if she was trying to get an entertainment, you could probably Google it and find it. And I did, and I didn't see anything. So I have a feeling she's either, a housewife or, just working a great job that doesn't have anything to do with TV.
Yeah. And then Flora was one of a kind. The whole season just had these different characters of people. Like you'd never seen like a Flora on there who was just biting and fun. And tell me a little bit about just kind of catching up with her.
So Flora and I did a challenge together. And we were supposed to do it, I think September 13th, 2001, fly down to Cabo. Then 9/11 happened. So they had to postpone which I didn't know she was going to be on it, but they postponed it. And so we ended up going down like 3 weeks later once the airlines let us fly again. And Flora was my partner. So we all had partners for the challenge. And Flora was mine. And it was just like we picked up just like that, and it was 4 or 5 years later. And we were not voted off, but lost whatever thing it was pretty early, but it was just great to spend time with her and see her and catch up. And now we're friends on Facebook and we message each other once in a while. But she's living down in South Florida. Got a beautiful daughter who's like a badass tennis player, apparently, like ranked. So, but she's doing well. Awesome. And then Dan told me she was actually on an episode of something where they mess up your body. I don't know what it is, but it's some TV show. And somebody said it the other day. I just can't remember the name of it. But apparently she's doing pretty well, though.
Probably something on TLC that my wife watches, I would say, probably.
Probably.
Are you married, kids? What's going on with you in Florida?
No ring on this finger. I was engaged when I was living out in California. Just never happened. She's still one of my best friends. No kids. Had a dog. Passed away a few years ago. And now I'm just back to 24-year-old real world Mike.
Is that true? Oh my!
Just going around doing whatever.
Oh my goodness! This is the most exciting.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. I mean, I live on the beach, so I spend most of my time down there. I get up every morning religiously with my coffee. In the summer, iced coffee. Head down there for a swim. little run or swim, whatever it is, a frolic, I like to call it these days. And then get into some traveling in, go back to California quite a bit, and then heading overseas in a couple months. So yeah, life is good.
I think they need to do another real world, and you just get thrown in with all the kids.
No.
What? So what was it like after the show aired? I mean, was it crazy? Like, because now we've done 5 seasons, and that was a very happy. People love this cast. Was it like all the time people noticing you, and you're doing these clubs and colleges? Tell me just about that the next couple of years.
It was strange going places at first. Obviously, while it aired, we're getting noticed all the time. Again, like I said earlier, as time goes on, it diminishes. But it was crazy going to these colleges. We did. I did a speaking one at of all places, University of Miami, with I think 3 other people. I want to say Puck was one of them, but there was like 4 of us from previous Real Worlds, and there was several thousand people there. So it was odd, the amount of people, but you got to remember it's colleges. It was huge in colleges back then. So going to see people who just were that enamored, and then doing like charity events. And I got to tell you, the weirdest thing was signing autographs. Like I've never been that guy to seek one. And so just to sign was just very odd for me. I'm like, I'm just me, man. It was, I did it obviously. But yeah, just a very odd feeling, but it did have its perks too.
I was just going to say, I don't want to give away any exciting secrets you may tell in Homecoming, but were you just taking it all in? And I mean, by taking it all in, just doing what you would expect.
That's not prison talk, is it?
I don't know.
No, I enjoyed it. Look, I enjoyed it. There are great aspects to it. I was telling Mike last week, I don't understand how some of these, and I'm not lumping myself by in any means with all this, but like those celebrities, like the Brad Pitts, the A-listers, how they live their life, going out, and just for a little while we go out, people would notice you and say, hey, or whatever, but, have cameras follow you, not in a filming way, but more of a paparazzi way. I don't know how those people do that nonstop. I guess you just get immune to it after a while, but it just seems so odd to me. And we just had a fraction of that, and just for a little while, and it was fun, odd a bit. I never understood that, and it had its perks, but yeah, it's not something I don't think I could ever get used to at all.
Yeah, there was a TikTok, and my wife watches TikTok all the time. I check it every once in a while. And it was just Justin Bieber coming home from his house, going into his apartment, and just people are mobbing him. And this one woman just keeps yelling, "Can I get a hug? Can I get a hug?" And he's like, I'm just coming from the gym. I just want to go inside. And I could understand that, although I think I could figure out a way of making it work.
Yeah, do you want a hug too?
I would not from Justin. I'm a hugger. My wife hates when I say that, but I'm a hugger. I like to hug.
What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. Everybody should embrace that. Obviously not during COVID, but other than that, everybody should embrace that. But yeah, I don't understand that whole mentality. I just don't know how they deal with it. But again, it's just something they must just get used to. And some people probably, actually, I know a lot of people these days, because of reality and the way it started, people just want to be famous just to be famous, for no other reason than just to be famous. And I've heard people say that before. When I lived in California for 13 years, moved back here back in 2010, and I just met so many people. They're like, "You were on The Real World. Can you help me?" I'm like, "I was on The Real World years ago. No, I can't help you." I'm like, "What do you want to do? Are you an actor? Singer?" "No, I just want to be famous." I'm like, "Well, good luck. Go do something." I don't know.
I always wonder, there's these would you rather games, and one of the questions that gets asked every time, would you rather be Kim Kardashian or Bill Gates? So you're going to make money. One person doesn't have to really do anything, and the other has to be smart. And I always wonder what I think the country thinks Kim Kardashian versus Bill Gates. I think it's like,
I don't know. I don't want to kiss Kanye West. So I could say I'd rather be Bill Gates. Yeah. No, that's a very philosophical question, though, Brad.
Well,
that's a tough one to answer.
It's the one. I hear it, and you hear these radio shows, podcasts I listen to. But it makes you think. And by the way, I think you have to catch up on this celebrity bullshit. Kanye is now with Pete Davidson, okay? This comedian on SNL. It's been going on forever.
I love SNL. I know Pete Davidson. Yeah. Well, look, there's some shit you just can't miss. As much as I don't like any of that, nor do I keep up with it, I mean, it's thrown in your face. You know what I mean? It's like coming out of your mom's vagina. You're going to see light eventually.
Did not have to have that image in my head, but thanks. That's good.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, you know what I mean? It's just there. No matter what, it's there. No, you can't avoid it. So, but yeah, no, I'd take the Bill Gates on that one.
So the real world, would you, I mean, it sounds like you would do it again, right? If not, I'm not saying now, but I'm just saying if your experience was great and if they said, hey, 5 years from now we want to do this again, how many people do you think say, no, I never want to do it again? What's the percentage? And we can talk about maybe the first 15 years, because then it just became.
Yeah. 90% will probably say no. I mean, look, for that duration of time at least. I mean, look, we're all older now. Everybody has jobs, families, to go there and say you're going to sit there for 5 or 6 months and do it again is virtually impossible for most people these days, unless you're in your early 20s.
Not just the experience of all of it, just everything that came.
The experience itself, if there were no other factors involved, like families and all that, I would probably do it. I would, maybe not 5 or 6 months, but I'd probably do it. Look, it was fun. And knowing now what I didn't know then, there's really good things to come after that. And not just what you do, but the people you meet and the friendships you forge. I think that made the experience more worth it than anything.
It's funny too, because and I've mentioned this with each of your other castmates, because it is sort of like a high school that everyone got to watch. And so it's interesting that you guys all do try to keep, I mean, now because of this Paramount show, I mean, there's people definitely trying to get in touch with each other. But you could see where people wouldn't want to be in touch. But it seems like to me, especially these earlier years, like I said, Mike he's from St. Louis, and he was on the
love Mike.
Talks to Neil. I mean, he's still there's still these conversations that are being had with you people after you've known each other for 6 months, and that's it. You could just go your separate ways, but it's something that you guys did that was special. And obviously, I called you because I was interested. I liked that show. It's interesting that you guys still wanted to talk to each other, because it could just be 20 years ago. Who cares? But I find that interesting.
Yeah, and again, Brad, 5 years after the real world, if you would have asked that, I probably would have said, fuck no. But you know what? We've all grown up. You put petty shit behind you. And now I think it'd be extremely interesting to hang out with him for a couple of weeks, Just to, first of all, to reminisce. Well, let me take that back. First of all, just to see everybody, see how they're doing. Second of all, to reminisce. Who knows if there'd be arguments again? There could be. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit I did the Dan and Melissa thing. I kind of instigated that a little bit. And looking back, it's so stupid. But, now as I'm growing up, I'm like, that's kind of funny. So, but yeah, I'd love to. I really would, just to see them.
So the show is not on Paramount. I didn't see any on YouTube, but I still remember Dan's reaction. I think that face he makes when she calls him, Flamer, right? I think it's what she...
Yeah.
The face he makes, I can still see in my head, because it's the funniest. It's fun.
Let's be honest. Dan is very. His emotions are never held back, and he is. Anything you see from Dan is authentic. That's for sure. And it's a little eccentric, but yeah, that's Dan.
Did you have any favorite moments of being there, just with either the cast, being on TV, the part that we saw, or maybe you didn't see? Was there, when you look back at that experience?
I look back at it as, there were some great moments. So we were in South Beach, and I'm 24 years old. And at the time, South Beach was kind of the mecca of party. All these bars, all the celebrities were down there. Steven Tyler were hanging out. I mean, just all these people. And so we got to go to all the clubs and hang out and do all that stuff. And again, at the age of 24, that was heaven. For a guy like myself to sit there with all these models around and celebrities, and everything was VIP and comped, that was heaven. I mean, I can't lie. But the house we lived in, it was great. Everything but the pay was great.
What's their pay? It was like $500 or whatever?
Yeah, well, they gave us money to start a business. It was $50,000, and in South Beach, nobody's going to start a fucking business with $50,000. So at the end, they just decided to split it and give it to us. So 50 divided by 7, we each, got a little check, and that was it for 5.5 months, 6 months of filming, whatever it was. Not the best.
I will say that was a wonderful storyline to have, that you guys just couldn't get your shit together to get a bit. Like Joe was like, guys, we need it. And then Sarah's out skateboarding, you're out drinking. It was just that was the funniest thing.
there was no way that was going to happen. And I think they knew that. And I think that was the TV that they wanted to create. Right. So we, like my idea was to throw a party because we had access to all these celebrities, the bars, everything. And I wanted to throw a party to raise money for a charity. Brought it up, talked to our producers, and they went to the top and they were like, nope, because they knew it'd be too easy. You know, they wanted to see us fight and all that. But yeah, that got nixed and that kind of bummed me out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a great season. Again, people remembered the show, especially my age. My wife was like, "Oh, this is very exciting." I mean, it was a fun time. It just takes you back. The '90s were fun. There was none of this bickering and the politics, and no one gave a shit about politics. You know, it was fun, and the MTV was just there was bright colors, and it was a good time. So it was fun.
Yeah, the '90s that to us was like the '90s. Now was like the '60s to our parents.
Right.
You know, it was just so simple. And now everything, you're right, is just fucked up.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll see you on Paramount Plus. Thank you for joining me, and I thank you here for joining me once again. Here's the pitch, sponsored by Masters Restaurants. 5 locations, stlmasters.com. We'll see you.